Hello again, all my friends. This is A Look in the Dark, chapter 10, and the chapter is called Now 4, and this is part 1 of that chapter. Carol glanced up at the four fluted chimneys of Battersea Power Station, London, each standing 355 feet high. The taxi driver told her that it had ceased to be active in the 1970s, but then he informed her of the building's paradoxical situation. In 1933 it had been opened despite public disapproval due to the fears of health-threatening pollution. Now this hungry, energy-generating monster of the 20th century, after 30 years of use, lay unused, yet it had been honoured with the tag, listed building. Funny old world, innit, love? He said, laughing. You'd say that even more if you were a taxi driver in Belfast. No tar, love, I'll stick it out in the big smoke. A few minutes later and the taxi drew to a halt outside the Clapham home of Major Stanhurst's office, and Carol didn't notice that the taxi driver couldn't take his eyes off her. He was thinking that if they all looked as much like a model as that, one maybe driving in Belfast would have its consolations. Smiling at the young mother pushing the buggy with the cover over its occupant to shield him from the drizzle, Carol commented on the weather. It's a soft day. The young woman walked on puzzled. How could a day be soft? The Tyrone expression meant nothing in London town. It had taken a long time to convince Danny that this trip was a good idea, but he had finally been won over. He was at home in Somerset right now, finishing off his article, A Young Birder's Guide to the More Common Seagulls. Looking forward to seeing young office girl Sue again, Carol confidently pushed open the door under the sign advertising History and Natural History Bookfinding. The disappointment was clear across her face when she found not Sue, but a somewhat brassy woman of about 40 sitting at the desk toward the back of the office. Good morning, said the blonde-haired, maybe once a bombshell, now a bit more an old sheep struggling to look like a lamb. Mint sauce, Carol thought, but she politely returned the good morning. Can I help you? Asked Mint Sauce. Sue not in today? Not in any day, doesn't work here anymore. Now what can I do for you? The Major was going to get a book for me. Carol paused. The woman's manner was so offhand compared with the lovely friendly Sue. My name is Cathy McGovern. Hold on, please. The woman checked a file book. Yes, your book is here, but there's a note here that the Major would like to see you personally. As she buzzed, Stanhurst, Carol heard him, just a bit more civilly than he would have spoken to Sue, asked that the woman tell Mrs. McGovern to go to his office. Carol smiled at the photocopier, feeling that she and it were allies with a very important secret. It's okay, I know the way up. Well, of course she did. Had she not run up and down those stairs with bundles of records one Sunday morning? Rapidly climbing the stairs, Carol entered the bookfinder's office without knocking, and as he arose and extended his hand, she took it, and looking into those eyes, felt like the victim of a science fiction alien who could freeze his enemies with one penetrating stare. For one awful second she thought he knew what had taken place, but her fears were soon allayed. Well, Mrs. McGovern, I had to make a considerable effort, but I found your book. Stanhurst reached under his desk and he held it out to her. She read the title on the spine, Volume 1, Mammalia. The first copy I located was in very poor condition and certainly not suitable for the serious collector, but this copy, he tapped the front of the book, this copy is in fairly good condition and has a little extra feature which will of course mean a little extra on the price. His perfect white teeth looked as if they would happily chew up anything in his path. The aura that he seemed to give off suggested the word truculent to Carol. Wondering if he was straight about anything, Carol asked, What is this little feature, Major? She was pleasantly surprised. The Major opened the front cover of the book, and just inside the flyleaf was a handwritten letter, and Carol could see at the bottom of the page a signature, as Stanhurst's severely manicured finger pointed out, is from the author, Mrs. McGovern. It would seem that the original owner of the book had a question about the roosting habits of horseshoe bats. This letter is the reply. I have verified that it's authentic. It makes this particular copy of this fairly widely distributed book rather unique. Very interesting, Major. Despite her contempt for the criminal, she was speaking genuinely about the letter. She saw no problem handing over another £20 for the book. As she did so, she mused over the situation. Danny didn't dare to show his face to Stanhurst again. She, on the other hand, had a business relationship with him and only needed a reason to return to the office if ever it seemed like a good idea. Lifting the encyclopedia-sized book from the desk with an ease that Stanhurst noticed, she caught once more those icy cold steel blue eyes. "So how's the armaments business, Mrs. McGovern?" "Booming." Carol laughed at her own joke, and a very slight smile pushed the corners of the Major's mouth up a couple of millimetres. "Can you find me another book, Major, in time for my next visit to England?" "No doubt we can. When will you return to this country?" "That I can't say. My husband is very, very busy, but we will be back. And I'd like you to find me another ornithological classic, The Life of a Robin by David Lack." "Shouldn't be a problem. I've seen that book often enough." "I want a very good copy." That could be more expensive." "That really is not important, Major. At risk of sounding rather arrogant, any books you locate for me will cost small change compared with the income the arms business provides my husband. Just get me a really pristine copy and the price will not be important." "Is that nice young lady Sue not working for you anymore?" "That nice young lady," there was a strong sarcasm in his tone of reply, "was sacked for her dishonesty. One thing I will not tolerate is theft in my establishment. I hope she is unemployed, as she deserves to be. She'll get no reference from me." "You total hypocrite." They were the thoughts that reached the point of her tongue, but instead she said, "My husband is the same. He fired his Asian manager last month for bribing a customer in India." "Your husband has a large international clientele?" "Oh yes. I also deal with matters internationally with much success." "In books, Major Stanhurst?" "In history, Mrs. McGovern." Carol turned her eyes to the Norman soldier in the picture on the wall. "Hence him." As she said it, she thought that the warrior might know that they were both lying, but she was sure Stanhurst didn't know that she was not speaking the truth. Stanhurst noticed her eyes on the picture. "Wonderful people, Mrs. McGovern. William of Normandy did more to establish a Britain with a backbone than all those clowns in Parliament today put together." "A few Saxons might find that hard to accept." "The lot of a defeated people is to serve, Mrs. McGovern. Do you know your history?" "Oh, I'll stick with natural history, I think. I must go and meet up with my husband. He should have left the Foreign Secretary's office by now." She felt that might be pushing it a bit, but she said it anyway. Avoiding any eye contact with the owl that had the mouse in its beak, she moved to the door and asked the Major to hold on to the David Lack book until she returned. As Carol descended the stairs, Stanhurst was reflecting on the leery pleasure of what he thought was Mrs. McGovern's second visit to his office. But Carol and the Norman warrior knew a lot better than he did. As Carol returned back to the reception area, an idea was forming in her mind. But she needed a bit more information first. Entering the office again, she found the brassy new receptionist reading the newspaper. Obviously her position here was somewhat different from the one Sue had occupied, and she seemed altogether more the type of person that would be expected to associate with the Major. Indeed, Sue felt that this lady would know not much more about Stanhurst's business activities than Sue would ever have known. So why did Major Stanhurst sack Sue? She seemed such a pleasant girl. Pleasantness does not compensate for theft. So what did she steal? Stationery? The receptionist couldn't really understand why a wealthy lady, wife of an international arms dealer, was concerned about a stupid teenage girl like her. Well, theft is theft, I guess. But most young ones take a couple of pens or something these days. Pens? Oh no, she took loads of photocopy paper and ink. Stupid girl, took it all at once, didn't even have the sense to take a packet at a time. Anyway, she was soon out of here. Why should Major Stanhurst give a thief a second chance? Carol felt the colour draining out of her. It's my fault, she was thinking. Sue got the sack because I used up all the photocopy paper and most of the ink. Gaining control of herself, she said, No, I understand. Who would employ a thief? But as Sue left the bookfinding premises, she cursed this vulture who condemned a magpie. Yet she condemned herself even more. She felt so bad that she had set in motion the branding of Sue as dishonest. The idea that had been forming in her mind was more than a notion now, it was a necessity. So, now maybe you can work out where this story is going. It will be revealed in the next episode of chapter 10. There are some awful crooked people out there, aren't there? There's also some very nice people too. And we like to try and find those, don't we? We all like to find those nice people. Especially those who love what's right. Nice to talk to you again, my friends. Hope everybody's well. Hope everybody's coping. And love to one and all from Kate and myself. Bye bye now. Bye bye.